Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Leo Rodman, and joining me today is Francesca, or Frankie, Tabor. Hi, Frankie. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Really great to connect over LinkedIn. We both have a shared passion for AI, so really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do currently for work and how you use AI at work?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder of Gen AICon, which is a conference around generative AI, mainly focused on media, marketing, and creative industries, but also the kind of AI ethics side of things. So I do a lot of events and community building. And then I've got a community called Fashion AI, which is a community of mainly independent digital fashion designers that are using AI tools to create new designs. But slowly but surely, we're also speaking to brands to see how brands can also incorporate generative AI, but also AI in the whole kind of end-to-end fashion process.
Yeah, that's really cool. So how'd you get into this? What's your background originally?
So if I'm to go like way, way, way back, so when I was at boarding school, I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. I was creative, I was dyslexic, I just couldn't envision my future. But then I happened to go to the same boarding school as Richard Branson. So I picked up his book and was really inspired by his entrepreneurial journey. So I knew I wanted to be entrepreneurial. Then in my early 20s, I joined a startup that was building a social media platform like Facebook. So I was project managing a team who are based in India. So I really started on the kind of tech side of things. And then as a project manager, and then during COVID-19, got into metaverse games, NFTs, started community building from that point. And when generative AI came around as a creative person, it was just like a natural kind of falling down the rabbit hole, trying all these tools, ChatGPT, Midjourney, and just seeing how many industries it's going to disrupt. So we've only scratched the surface, and I can't wait to see what comes in the next 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of your passions seems to be fashion.
Mhm.
I think, in terms of generating cool designs, AI is there. I think in terms of creating marketing for real products, not 100% there, or turning designs into real life fashions. We're not quite there yet. I'm obviously watching the news so I can buy the first AI designed t-shirt or whatever when that comes out. But yeah, what have you seen so far and what do you think's coming next?
Yeah, sure. So I guess there are three different stages. I'm massively oversimplifying fashion, but there's like the creation of new products and the kind of creative direction. Then there's the manufacturing side, and then there's the end, selling on e-commerce. So to your point, on the sort of e-commerce side of things, you can use generative AI to switch up the backgrounds of products. You can also localize content. So you could put a dress on different models, so that if you're trying to target um, a woman in India, you might want to put a dress on an Indian supermodel, for example. Likewise, you can use ChatGPT to then also localize content with languages and things like that. Manufacturing is going to be an amazing use case for AI, probably not generative AI as much, but just in terms of matching supply and demand, making the unit economics work out, making manufacturing more sustainable. So, for example, on the factory floor, you might get a lot of waste. You could, in theory, take that and then use AI to reimagine what could we do with this size of material. It's very complex to do, but with AI, we can get there. And then going one step before will be the design process. This is what Fashion AI have focused on. So we've just got a community of creatives. Every week we do a different competition. And it's like being, a creative director or a filmmaker and director, because you're coming up with a storyline. And then people will interpret that story, create the designs, but they're also creating the scene that they're in, the model. So fashion is a form of storytelling, and that's what makes it so fun and exciting.
Yeah, what do you think about AI in terms of democratizing access to design?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been an idealist. So I love the idea of being able to go from AI to 3D, being able to sell digital fashion first. Once you get to a certain number of digital fashion items sold, then being able to pair digital fashion with physical fashion and allowing people to pre-order physical fashion ahead of time. Because what happens at the moment is the fashion industry is very exclusive. So people right at the top will determine what the trends are years in advance, almost, or months and years in advance, because of how long the manufacturing process takes. They'll manufacture things, they'll have a lot of inventory, put it on the catwalk, put it on celebrities, and then we end up buying. Instead, this way around, working with creatives get to decide what the trends are through their prompts. And ideally, they will also get to have a closer relationship with consumers, and potentially one day consumers will also be able to just design clothes that suit them and express their personality and just get that made straight away. We can already see that happening a little bit with print on demand, but print on demand is pretty limited. It's put a logo, that's print on demand. Exactly. Yeah. I'm definitely exploring print on demand, and I think there are more luxurious versions of print on demand, like sublimation, where you can print, do different textures on materials. So that's coming down the track. Also, you've got 3D printing. So all of these technologies converging will allow for more personalization. And I think often of the movie Clueless, everyone thinks, oh, that's just a fun, superficial film. But actually, right at the beginning, she's creating her kind of custom wardrobe. She's got this computer and she's going through all these different outfits. And we're still not there yet. But I think in future, we'll have smart mirrors with cameras in them that will be able to do motion tracking and pose estimation. So they'll be able to see this is your body, and then you'll be able to see and superimpose on top of your body the digital fashion, whether it's an item of clothes that you actually own or something that you don't own yet, and then you can purchase through the mirror, or it'll tell you, okay, the shop is just around the corner. So that's again coming down the track, but the technology is not quite there yet in terms of motion tracking. I've done a bit of work with Move AI, with Rococo, with Accents, love motion capture. But yeah, it's not quite that yet.
Yeah, well, give them 3 to 6 months and we'll see where we are, right? That's really what I see with any of these technologies, that almost anything is conceivable within a year. So you mentioned kind of the idea of individual small-time designers coming up with their own things and determining trends. Do you think that potentially pits these small-time new creatives against the giant fashion houses that, are obviously heavily invested in the current way of doing things?
I think yes and no. I think yes, anyone in future will be able to create their designs visually, but the translating that to the manufacturing process, an assembly line of one piece, the unit economics don't work unless you've got 3D printing. And so the bottleneck is really on the manufacturing side. And that's the key piece that needs to be solved. However, there are marketplaces like Etsy out there. I think also since COVID-19, we've gone from global supply chains to more local ones because there are so many supply chain disruptions. Also because of sustainability, we all want, more micro factories. So those micro factories need to be built before we can start to, want to create something and have it shipped to us straight away, because we're all used to convenience. We're used to being able to press a button and get a hamburger in 15 minutes. So if you're suddenly going to present to someone, okay, you can design your own clothes, but you can only get it in 4 months' time, and you say, okay, this is sustainable and it's slow fashion, unfortunately, the reality is people go into a shop and they see a sustainable fashion line that's more expensive and they don't buy it. So we have to also be kind of pragmatic about that. But yes, I'm working towards that kind of more sustainable, more personalized future that's more democratized. And I hope we do get there. And I think part of that will be getting creatives to work together. So getting them to work together as a unit so they can compete with the bigger fashion brands.
Yeah, I haven't actually researched this, but do you know how many like shirts or pairs of pants are made and sold every year?
I will have to get back to you with like hard numbers on that. But
I mean, it
yeah,
has to be like billions, right?
yeah,
Yeah, so what do you think it takes to scale up manufacturing for these sort of micro manufacturing or just in time or made to order type creations?
I don't have the kind of the solution yet. I'm definitely going to be researching this whole area. But there are one area that is really fascinating is sort of new materials that are being made from waste, essentially. So I have one member in my community. He's from Nigeria. He then went to Osaka to study architecture, and he was confronted with all of this waste being dumped in Nigeria from all around the world, complete trash, but that can actually be turned into sustainable fashion. Especially if you melt down plastics, you can then use 3D printing to kind of print it out in exactly the garment that you want. And there are some amazing emerging designers that are creating some incredible haute couture style dresses that are completely changing our perception of 3D printing. So he's going to Osaka, studying, architecture, 3D printing, real futurist, also thinking about sci-fi movies, thinking about fashion that you can wear in space, fashion that's made of natural living materials that can be grown in a lab. Imagine a shoe that's just grown in a lab. So these are all like yeah, very like futuristic concepts. They're not particularly practical, but
Yeah.
it's in exploring these concepts that suddenly you come up with a new technique. So for example, you can use computer vision to analyze the properties of different materials, say waste material, and you can say, okay, this we can reuse and repurpose, this we can't. But yes, I think to your point in terms of being able to scale this for like the small designers, I think it's about modular fashion. So can we start with a base shoe and then, take it into a Nike store, and then we use generative AI to create some artwork that just gets spray painted on in store. So it won't be the full process, but it will be, you can definitely personalize elements.
Okay, so quite kind of like I think it was called Nike ID, right? Where you design your own shoe online and then they ship it to you and you can like pick the color panels and the color of the sole and things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of thing would be really fun to see.
Absolutely. And then you've got the augmented reality side. So you can, with RFID chips, can scan that and then, create some cool kind of effects, whether it's wings or just like a cool pattern that goes on top of your clothes. So that can be quite fun.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to people in Apple Vision headsets tripping over themselves as they try to cross the street step.
Yeah. We already have that issue, people
I text while I cross the crosswalk. It's a terrible idea. I shouldn't do it. When my partner sees this video, she's going to be like, "You what?"
You are? Exactly.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's about time for us. So thank you very much for joining us. Do you have some parting thoughts or words that you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just please feel free to reach out. I'm doing a lot of consulting work at the moment for universities and businesses that are trying to transform and move into the space. So building their own kind of white label generating tools that's trained on all of their data that they can sort of protect their IP. So universities, for example, they need to train their faculty and then start to train their students. So, are they going to ban ChatGPT? Are they going to embrace it? So I'm very much part of the school of thought that we should be embracing innovation, but in a very responsible manner and looking at kind of AI ethics, IP issues, and all of these sorts of things. So yeah, if you are also looking to embrace AI, please do get in touch.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. And thank you very much for everyone who's been listening. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And
Bye bye.